Welcome to my tutorial for The Lost World, which is basically an extra set of 5 stages and a optional final boss. I believe that's how you get the best ending to the game. First you need to get 75 Kremlin coins, but the way to get them without having to go through the levels and collect all the shit, which is something I hate doing, there's a way to get all 75 Kremlin coins on the first stage of the game. And I don't remember exactly how I did it. I know I found the solution on Gamefaqs. It tells you exactly what to do in the cheats section. So you may consider that illegitimate if you actually want to get the Krem coins in the stages. But me, I hate collecting shit. So I bypassed that. I just wanted to beat the stages. They're actually, some of them are more challenging stages than the ones found in the main game. None of them were really too difficult for me except for one stage, which probably took an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's a flying stage with some animals called Animal Annex. That's the toughest one. Now, the first clip that I showed was me farming regular coins, because the reason I need those is for traveling on the airplane to get to the various areas and also to save my game. So the way to grind those is just check the first clip that I show in this video, and you're going to see me collecting the coin in that specific level and then pressing start to pause the game, then select to exit. And by doing that rapidly, you'll collect a bunch of coins, and you can use those for travel and saving and all that shit. And then here I'm farming extra lives. I did this for quite a while, but I edited all this down. So you're going to see by going to this stage, which you'll see in the world map, you'll be able to find it. It's called Hothead Top. I believe it's in Crocodile Cauldron or something shit like that. But once you get in there, you can farm a bunch of lives by doing exactly what I did, throwing up the character to the top level and grabbing that chest. And you can just keep pressing start and then select to exit the level, and you'll keep all the 1-ups you gain. And you get 2 1-ups every time you break that chest. So those are the 2 methods I use to farm both coins and 1-ups for this, because these levels can be quite difficult. I wanted to have 99 lives or more. You can actually hold more than 99 lives, but it only shows 99. You can have a lot more. So you can farm up just about as many as you want. I don't know what the limit is, but it goes quite a bit above 99. So for this stage, the main thing is to get used to the rhythm of the tires coming out so that you can bounce on them, because you can't see them off screen a lot of times. So you got to get used to the timing that they come out by just watching them, and you'll get a feel for the timing when they're going to appear right next to you so you can bounce on them. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you'll get stuck, getting run over by them or pushed into holes and shit like that. So you just want to get used to the timing on them. Some of them are easy enough to adapt to in the moment, but a few of them that are over pits like this one, you want to get the timing down for. See, because if you don't get that timing down, you'll go right into the spike when you try to bounce. So some of them you really want to get a feel for the timing, and that's just watching them and kind of studying them and trying to get a feel for the pulse of the timing when they arrive. And then you can bounce on them. You got to be holding the jump button to get that high bounce. And that's really the main thing for this level, is just bouncing on these tires. And usually you can bounce from tire to tire. So if you bounce off one, there's usually another one that's coming right behind it. There's a gap, and you bounce onto the next one. See, like that. That's pretty much the entire level. I found this level to be pretty easy. It didn't really give me much trouble at all. I think there was levels in the main game that were much harder than this stage. Most of these stages I found to be pretty easy, except for one. But I'm going to show all 5 stages and the boss. So yeah, this is another easy one. It's not hard at all. So all you're going to really be doing is just trying to get down to the bottom. It's pretty much the whole stage is descending this area. So it's quite easy. And there's going to be a checkpoint barrel. There's also a lot of 1-ups you can get in here. If you die a lot, you'll be able to collect 1-ups and keep your lives up. But you're probably not going to have a problem if you farmed up, 99 lives or more in the other area. You really don't have to farm a ton of lives, though, for these. You can treat these levels as regular stages. They're not really that hard. There's a few... There's some other tricky stages involving barrels that are tricky, but these 2 stages I think are not going to give most players of the game too much trouble if you already played the main game. Especially if you beat the main game, these are going to be easy. Because the game is quite challenging, the regular game. So here you get your checkpoint barrel, And there's another Donkey Kong you can collect if you lose one. Gives you an extra hit point, basically. But it's pretty much just a descent downward. And if you're using the female character, Dixie, you can kind of just hover and float over a lot of shit. So that makes it even easier. So I do recommend using that character to, get through a little faster. Now for this, I'm just putting commentary over my playthrough. I didn't refine any of this. So this was just how I beat each stage. I just edited out the deaths. It took me maybe 5 hours and 6 minutes to beat this optional content. That also includes farming 1-ups in the area I showed and farming those coins. So it's not all, regular gameplay. And also saving and, flying around the map and all that shit. The whole process was about 5 hours and 6 minutes. And most of that was on one mission, the Animal Antics mission. So for this mission, you're mostly going to be avoiding these guys that rush at you and jumping over them and just try to bounce on top of them and get across. You don't always have to jump completely over them because they will bust into you a lot. But you just want to bounce away from them and get into the next area. Whenever you get into a barrel that has the character you're playing as on it, you'll get shot out. This is very simple. You just have a counter on the barrel and you want to direct it so that you launch to the next barrel. That's the easy part, but it gets tricky towards the end. You want to bounce up here, bounce, on top of these guys and get up here. You can get some 1-ups from that guy if you want, the gray barrel guy. If you bang into him, he'll release 1-ups, I think. Some of them do. I don't know if they all do, but you really shouldn't. You're not really going to need 1-ups at this point if you farm them. So now you just want to go into the barrel that matches up with the character you're currently playing as. And I believe after this, things get a little trickier. Just have to wait for your opening, basically. And now you'll get a checkpoint here. And I believe this second half of the level is where things get more challenging. Yeah, this part's pretty tough. I like to run back and then let those guys charge at me and then jump over both of them, but it's easy to get to these barrels. The barrels is the tricky part. So, you're going to be shooting into these barrels as you see me doing it diagonally most of the time to get into the main barrel that you're riding. For that, you want to jump up and over and just let the barrel move and then move into it. You can kind of see what I'm doing. I mean, it probably doesn't require much explanation. But some of the positioning is a little tricky because sometimes you can accidentally aim wrong and fire into the spikes. That's the main thing. You want to make sure you go into the barrels you see me shooting into, because if you go into the wrong barrels, you won't do it properly and you'll end up crashing into the spikes or hitting into the bees. So really, I would say just try to follow what you see me doing. It doesn't really require any explanation. But it can be tricky. You just have to get the timing down, and it just takes some practice. See, I messed up there, but I was able to recover by jumping back into the barrel. Sometimes you can recover like that. So if you mess up, be aware of that. This part I didn't get a consistent method for. I got lucky on this part. Every time I would get here, this guy would push me into the spikes. And I was able to kind of, get him into the barrel, and then his friend crashed into it and died. So I got lucky with that. I don't really have a good method for dealing with that, but I would recommend making save and load states and practicing sections like that so you can, get a strategy for that. That's what I did whenever I had issues. I would use save and load states to practice a part on the emulator. This stage can also be tricky. This is another barrel stage, but this time you ride the barrels and you can eject out of them at will, or you get kicked out of them when the timer runs out, either way. So you have to set it up properly. You'll memorize the route after a while, though. I mean, after dying on this a few times, you'll start to understand where you got to move the barrels exactly, and you won't really have any hesitation. So you really just want to follow the route that you see me doing pretty much. It works. As you can see, I don't care about collecting anything in the environment. I'm just playing to beat the game, beat the levels. That's why I bypassed collecting all the krem coins, because I have no interest in collecting shit in games. I'm just really not into that at all. But I wanted to play through these levels. So yeah, you just want to shoot onto those dragonflies and, make sure you're still holding jump so you can get that high bounce and bounce off with them into the next area where you need to be. I use the barrel here to take out that hook guy because I find him to be more of a nuisance than the sword guy. The sword guys are irritating though because if you don't let them attack first, they often run into you and hit you. See, I let them charge and then I jump over them. They get their sword stuck in the ground and you can jump over them. It's easier to deal with them that way. If you try to jump over them before they did their attack, they usually will hit me. So I try to let them attack first before I move on. See, like that. If that guy grabs you, he can throw you all over the place and mess you up. So you got to be careful with that. This is where it gets tricky now. You got to shoot into these barrels, and there's some tricky parts. That first part's not bad, but I think it gets a little tricky towards the end, if I remember right. Yeah, this part's a little tricky because, these bees don't always move the way you want them to, so it can be a little tricky. I think the previous level with the barrels was much harder than this one, though, from what I remember. I don't think this one was too bad, but it's a little tricky. Now, this guy ends up throwing me into the final area at the end of the stage. I guess that is the intention of that character, is to throw you over there. That's how I ended up beating it anyway. That was the only time I beat it, so I'm assuming that's supposed to happen. Now, this is Animal Antics. This is the hardest stage, probably in the entire game. It's known for being one of the hardest stages in the series of Donkey Kong Country games. So it is actually quite tough. Now, most of it is not really that difficult that I found. Most of the animal phases are not that hard. The thing that makes it challenging is, even though they're pretty easy animal phases, you don't get checkpoints. You only have one checkpoint, which comes kind of halfway through the stage. So you do have to beat a lot of shit before you get to a checkpoint. So that can make it tricky because you have to redo a lot. But eventually you will get good enough at the previous segments. And it won't be that bad to redo them. But you're going to want to use save and load states to practice some of these segments, especially the bird segment. That's the hardest part of the game by far. So for this part, if you take it slow, you can let these pufferfish explode. And then you only have to worry about the horizontal shrapnel, because you don't go below or above them. Just let them explode, and their projectiles will come from the right of the screen. So just, position yourself a little bit lower so you don't get hit by that horizontal shrapnel. That's all. Just take it slow. It's very easy. For those piranhas, you just keep using your dash attack as you move up, and you should be able to take them out, as I did, without taking any damage. That's what I did. Now this is going to be your first checkpoint. And I have a pretty easy method for this spider section. It's really not bad. You just have to know, where to be. One of your webs is going to be a web that sticks into the air. And it's one of your other buttons. And you're going to hit that button twice to make the web stay still in the air so you can ride on it. Then the other web is going to be for attacks. So you got to get used to that. But I take these guys out as I move across. And this is the path that I like to take. You can try going up high above some of the guys, but then it makes it a pain in the ass to drop down. So this is the route that I ended up liking the best. But here I go above all the enemies. You can go very high up, as you can see, and you can skip everything. So you don't have to deal with these bees directly. So it's pretty easy once you know the path and you get it down. As with all these parts, even these easier animal sections are going to take some practice. So use save and load states to master each section. Because you want, the spider you're going to want to learn because you have to do it every time you want to make attempts at this fucking bird stage. And this is the hardest part, this flying stage, because you have to fly the bird. Now for this you want to lure these guys so that they charge at you by going forward a little and then shoot them as they're charging you. That's how you deal with these vultures. Or you just hit the ones that you can reach, but either way, you want to take them all out. But this bird stage is the hardest, section I would say in the game. So the thing here is that you have to deal with constantly changing winds. So it's really going to be a muscle memory thing. I mean, you really can't explain that much about it. I can give tips, but you're just going to have to learn it. You're going to have to get a feel for when the winds change, the timing of when the winds change, because they always change in the same amount of time. It's very consistent. So you just got to get used to the pattern of when the wind changes and be ready to adapt. And I recommend using a lot of save and load state practice to really get this section down. Now, for me, I only practiced until I beat this section one time. And then after that, I decided to to do it, regularly by playing the game over. But you may want to beat it a few times in a row so you feel more confident. Because it still took me quite a while after I beat it once in practice to actually get it in the real run. For the dragonflies, you saw that I passed through 5 dragonflies by taking a hit. I recommend taking that hit if you have the extra hit point, because killing those 5 dragonflies is extremely tedious. And it's easy to get hit anyway. So I recommend just taking the hit, because there's a barrel, there's a Donkey Kong barrel at the end of the 5 dragonflies, and you will get your health back. So I recommend just taking the hit and busting through. It's a lot easier than trying to deal with those dragonflies. That's probably the best tip I can give for that section. It definitely makes it easier. Other than that, you're just going to have to play carefully and get used to, the flight mechanics and, just dealing with the wind. There's really not too many good tips I can give aside from just practicing it. Now for the snake, you have a button that if you hold it down, you will go into like a spastic mode where you start going up and down real fast, and when you release it, you'll do a huge jump. So you'll see me do that sometimes. But this is very easy. This is you would want to practice this as well, because if you fuck this up, you got to redo the whole bird section and the spider section again. You have to redo all that shit. So you really don't want to mess this up, and I did mess it up because I didn't practice it enough. So as easy as it is, you don't want to fuck it up. So I recommend practicing it. It is easy, but you should use save and load states. Just practice it. Make sure you have it down so you don't have to redo all that shit. And then after this, you have the final boss of this Lost World. And the final boss is actually very easy. You only have to hit him once. You just have to memorize the dodging of all the projectiles. So what I like to do, I go all the way to the left side of the screen. And I find it a lot easier to dodge everything from all the way at the end of the screen, for the most part. I mean, I move out a little bit, as you can see, but the high ones you can duck. I mean, the high ones you can duck under, and the low ones you can jump, or you can jump all of them if you're comfortable with it. Just depends how you want to do it. I kind of mix it up. There's one row though that I don't know how to dodge. It's this row. I always get hit here, but I didn't really care because I only get hit once, and then I'm able to survive the rest pretty easily. So I don't have any advice for that one section, but this section is easy if you stay all the way at the left of the screen. You'll see the fast ones and the slower ones. Just stay at the edge of the screen. You'll have enough time to react if you stay all the way at the end of the screen. It shouldn't be too hard. Now you're going to have to jump rows of 3. After you jump a few rows of 3, it's always the same. You're going to have to jump a row of 3 and then duck after 3 rows. So you're going to duck, then you're going to jump another row of 3 and then jump instead of ducking. And then you're going to have a barrel break that, and as soon as he's trying to suck you in, throw the barrel into his gun, and he'll suck it in and die. So that's pretty much it. It's actually a really easy boss. I mean, it did take me some tries to get the pattern down, but it's pretty easy because you really only have to hit him once. And it doesn't go on for that long. But yeah, it's really good bonus content for the game. It's cool that there was extra levels. As I said, that animal antics is really the main challenge that I found. But the barrels can be tough too. Timing the barrels can be tricky. But that didn't give me a huge amount of trouble. It was mainly, the animal antics, though, took me a while. Because with the bird, it's so easy to crash into the walls, and die. So really, all you can do with that is just try to make very subtle movements with the D-pad and subtle movements with your flight, like just tapping the flap a few times, not mashing it, because if you try to mash it quickly, a lot of times you will hit into shit. So you just got to get used to having a more precise and fine control with the flight, because you really got to be able to manage it in the wind, and that's just going to be practicing and kind of skill-based, muscle memory, getting better at it. So you may have to put in some time just practicing that segment, but I reckon making a save state right on that flight segment and just keep loading it at the beginning and just keep practicing it again and again. And then, when you restart the entire level, you should have enough practice. It'll give you a good chance of getting it through, especially if you farmed up over 100 lives like you should be for that level especially. Then you can keep starting from, at least you can start from the checkpoint each time. Let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.